Coming up this morning on the Dattitude podcast, well, nothing. We have nothing to talk about. Wait, what's that, Gabe? Oh, we have everything to talk about on this crazy Mano E Monday. So out of the blue, your quarterback, who has been MIA for a couple of months, suddenly has a bum shoulder. Well, we think he has a bum shoulder because we've heard these rumors through a couple of leaked reports and nothing from either the quarterback himself or a word from the team. There's nothing fishy about that. Oh, and the other major professional sports team in this cursed city just fired its general manager a day after the season ended and 3 days after the most embarrassing game performance in franchise history. Also, somehow, we need to mention that Rory McIlroy finished his career Grand Slam in his 11th try in the weirdest Masters Sunday you will ever see. And before we go today, in the last word, we will say a prayer for LSU wide receiver Kyren Lacy, who died tragically Saturday night. It's a jam-packed show, and it's time to go.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, Dattitude family? Where in the hell do we start today? I don't even know. So let's just start with this and let the snowball roll. This is Dattitude, episode number 362, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Monday, April the 14th, 2025. I am your host, Jim Derry, blah, 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 blah. We all know. I mean, let's get to the show. Please subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page. You know how to be a part of the show. We got so much stuff going on today. You can be a part of the show. It's Mano E Monday. Most of you know what that means. If you don't know what it means you type in comments. It's me, it's you, it's Gabe. At some point, we'll be on the show. He's behind the scenes for the entire show, helping direct traffic. We're going to talk to Gabe later. We're going to have, I don't know. I mean, the David Griffin thing happened like literally I had made all my slides and I'm about ready to go. And then David, I'm just talking about it in the pregame chat. I'm not making a slide for it. So of course we have Derek Carr. That's going to take up about, 70% of the show. There are just so many things. I'm sorry. Call me a doubting Thomas. My name isn't Thomas. Call me a doubting whatever you want to call me. My grandfather's name had Thomas in his middle name. Does that count? I'm a doubting Thomas. Am I not believing that the injury is real? Or do I not believe it's as serious as people are saying? Or I don't know what the hell I believe. Maybe you can help me figure out what to believe because I don't know what to believe. None of it makes sense. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. Derek Carr out of the blue with a major shoulder injury. I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense. Am I saying someone's lying? Maybe. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. But I want to get to the point, and when we get to the Saints section again, which is going to be very early in the show, I want someone to tell me when I say I'm a 34 year, where I've been in this business for 34 years, it means I'm old school. It doesn't just mean I'm old. It means I'm old school. And I think a lot of even younger journalists can still be old school, even if they're young. And what do I mean by this? I mean, I take myself back to sitting in a newsroom with a bunch of journalists who I respected and grew up to and looked up to my entire lives and sat in rooms and we talked about things. And we don't just run with sources say all the time. All of a sudden, Ian Rappaport comes out with this story on Friday that Derek Carr's got a bum shoulder and it could affect his season. He's contemplating surgery. Says who? Yes, Ian Rappaport is this well-respected journalist. I get it. But he doesn't say anything in the story except he's got an injured shoulder and that he's contemplating surgery. Which shoulder? Make this make sense. That's how we're going to spend most of today. Of course, we have other things to talk about. Now what? That's part of the show today. Now what? Does it change your thinking on when the Saints pick at number 9? Does it change your thinking? Doesn't change mine, but it might change yours. It might change the Saints. What did they know? How long have they known this? What do they know? There's so many things about this. Somebody's got to make it make sense for me, and it doesn't make sense. I'm not going to be able to spend as much time as I wanted to. I made a slide for Rory. I don't even know if I'm going to show it. Congratulations to Rory McIlroy. You won your 11th Masters. We're going to talk about it probably, but very briefly. Man versus machine. It's been a rough go for man. I mean, let's just get that out of the way. Man has sucked in the man versus machine. Let's just say that. That's going to be at the towards the latter end of the show, and then of course we're going to talk about Kyren Lacy, and that is the last word today. By the way, the last word is on Kyren Lacy, and everyone knows. I mean, I don't need to tell you here in the pregame chat portion of the show the tragic happenings with Kyren Lacy, and look, I'm telling you right now. I mean, the last word is. I'm going to say this out front. I love you all. I respect most of you. I respect almost all of you. Some of you I don't know, so I can't respect people I don't know until whatever. That's a whole different story. I'm just not going to get into any Kyren Lacy comments today, okay? I appreciate the sentiments and the thoughts. Again, I'm going to talk about Kyren Lacy at the end of the show, and I'm going to put this tribute my way. I appreciate everyone's, again, thoughts and sentiments, but I just, out of respect, I just don't think it's a good idea that I even the RIPs, I just don't want to get into it. And then you start showing them all, and I just don't want to get into that. So again, the last word today will be on Kyren Lacy. But Derek Carr, that is good. Obviously, that's what we're going to spend most of the day. I got a video to show you in a minute that even further makes it make less sense than it makes right now. You don't know what I'm talking about? Well, a lot of you probably don't know what I'm talking about. Most of you aren't. When I show you this, it's going to be something that almost everyone that's watching the show hasn't seen yet. And it goes to me further questioning this quote-unquote shoulder injury and the timing of it. I'll let you make up your own decision. That's coming up in just a minute, I promise. We got comments. I'm going to start off with comments, and then I'm going to show you the video. But before all that, I want to tell you about my friends at Evangeline Securities. They got a lot of questions, too. Even Nick Braden was texting me this morning. Everyone's got questions. I got questions. You got questions. We all got questions. Of course, Evangeline is a company that can help you decide if it's the right time to sell your family-run or privately held business. And just as importantly, they can help you figure out what that business is worth. If that's you or someone you know, it's time to reach out to Evangeline's founding and managing partners, Nick Braden and Ron Emeld. They will start by scheduling a complimentary valuation from their offices either on Poydras Street or in Lafayette. And from there, you'll be well-informed to begin to make the decision on if you want to proceed. We promise that if you get in touch with them, neither Nick nor Ron will suddenly develop a shoulder injury that can hamper the sale. They'll still be able to sign whatever they need. I don't even know what they sign. Whatever they do, their shoulder won't get in the way, I promise. We'll tell you more about it later in the show. In the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelisecurities.com. All right, what we got this morning? This ought to be good. I have not looked. I looked at the first 3 or 4 comments this morning before we went on, but I haven't looked at any of the other 30 some odd comments. Here we go. Gabe says a doubting Derry. Gabe says, you don't think reporters can say which shoulder? My ass. They say it all the time. If they're going to rumor that he has a shoulder injury, they're going to rumor which shoulder it is. I don't think I've ever not seen, if they say someone's got a knee injury, they say a right knee injury. They should usually say, nah. Not in today's world, they don't. Don't believe that for a second. Doesn't matter. Doesn't make sense. Charles Mangus, good morning. Go away. But it wasn't even a day. Found out about Derek Carr. As always, it seems like we go off the air and stuff happens. It's crazy. And then the David Griffin happened. Well, that happened right before we went on the air. Again, I'll touch on that briefly, but we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that. I'm gonna give you my spin on David Griffin. We may spend time later in the week talking about it, but I don't think that's what people want to hear. This. It's not a surprise that David Griffin got fired. I mean, it just isn't. Now, will they follow suit with Willie, whoever the new? I don't think so. I think this almost doesn't ensure anything, but I think it probably means Willie stays. Get to that. Maybe. We'll see. Gary, good morning. Bad news about Carr's shoulder. Who knew? No one. No one knew. No one knew. Dylan, good morning, Dattitude family. Let's get this Carr talk going. Absolutely. Brian Pearson. Let's talk about David Griffin getting fired about the Pelicans. Not going to talk much about it, Brian. I'm really not. Again, I don't know who's surprised. UBN, go Rory. Not going to talk much about that either. Again, I'm not mentioning Kyren Lacy, y'all. I appreciate it. Good morning, Scott. I appreciate it. Just not mention it. If you put Kyren Lacy in a comment, it's not getting shown. Brian S. Steve. I really feel like the timing of the leak of the Carr news really is going to make it seem like we're going to pick quarterback at 9, but I still don't think it's going to happen. The question is, does it change your opinion? Okay. If you already had the opinion that the Saints should draft a quarterback at 9, then you're certainly going to be on that boat now. If you weren't, I'm more interested in the people who weren't, who didn't want a quarterback before that. You know, that's the question to me. Again, all right, look, before I get to the rest of the comments, really quickly with David Griffin, because I do want to get to Saints and I want to spend today's show talking about the Saints. I was in attendance on Friday night. It's the only game I went to all year. Brought my girls. I thank my good friend Barry Barnesfather for giving me tickets to the Pelicans game. Again, this is going to be a two-minute spiel on David Griffin, and then we're going to move on to Derek Carr. And I really want to show you this video. We got plenty more comments to get to. And I'm telling you, this video, I want to get your take on it. I promise you, most of you have not seen this. David Griffin, what I saw Friday night was even more shocking seeing it in person, the state of this franchise. I get it that most of their players were quote unquote hurt or shut down, probably for the betterment of them and the franchise. But this is where we've come. Okay. You don't give a rat's ass about the people who come to see this game. Now, my girls didn't care who was playing. They didn't care whether, they would have liked to see Zion play. Yeah, of course. But the rest of them, one of my little girls asked me about, is CJ McCollum playing because she's got a CJ McCollum jersey? And I said, no, he got shut down too. But they got over it quickly. They enjoyed the game. They were more and this is how sad this is. And I think most of the people there were more interested if they could catch a cow coming off of a parachute from the rafters and a Chick-fil-A ad. They cared more about the Chick-fil-A stuff than they cared about the game. Can't say I blame them. I almost cared more about the Chick-fil-A stuff because the Pels didn't give a rat's ass. They lost, 153 to 104? The first time in franchise history they had given up 150. It's the first time. I've been covering sports for 34 years. I have never seen a basketball. I have never been present at a basketball game where one team scored 150 or more points. The state of this franchise is in as bad a shape as I've ever seen. I'll tell you what, I'll even give you one better. Even back in the days when I was a little kid and the Jazz were here. And the Jazz stunk up the joint. Okay? They played the Superdome, the cavernous Superdome. This team is in worse shape than that right now. Can it be fixed? Yes. But there's no question they had to fire David Griffin. It was the right thing to do. Again, I don't blame it all on Willie Green. It's way more David Griffin's fault that we got here and beyond. That's my thoughts on that. We will spend more time as we go forward talking about the Pelicans and the future of the Pelicans and who's the next GM and what happens to Willie Green as we go forward. But today's show, there's too much to talk about with Derek Carr to spend on this inept, horrendous, moribund franchise right now. And I mean the Pelicans. The Saints aren't far behind, I guess. So we're moving on. Make it make sense. That's the theme of today. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. All right, what else we got here this morning as we go forward? All right, let's get back to where we were. Good morning, Lance Dobard. Who dat daddy? Waiting on T-Boy. I don't know what that means. Lance Dobard says we're going to keep it positive, brother. We might not keep it positive today, my brother. It might not happen. Phil Mariande. Good morning, Saints fans, I think. UBN's trying to stir a pot. Let's see. Lance says it's not real. He wanted out, and this was to play his card. Mick knew he may play this card, so they got busy scouting quarterbacks and freeing up money for A-Rod. Yeah. Look, I got to say this. I don't believe that. However, at this point, I don't know if anything would shock me. Earl's Pick says something's definitely fishy. Apathy. Who hates Derek Carr, by the way? Carr had 2 shoulder injuries in the 23 season versus Green Bay and Detroit. Those injuries lingered to 24. It was never listed on the injury report for shoulder. Punishment incoming? Nah. They're not going to punish anybody now. Oh, boy. Lisa Brown. Sorry, boo. That's as bad. I'm not a fan of condescending hellos, which is what that is. But Lisa, welcome to the show. Carr needs to go bye-bye. He was paid too much, and he's only a mediocre quarterback. He wasn't paid too much. He wasn't even kind of paid too much. He's getting $20.4 million. That's another thing. Okay. I'm definitely not going to spend. If any of this is because of Carr, again, I'm about to show you that video, I promise. If any of this is because of Carr, I have no defense for him. He can, whatever happens to him, happens to him. If T-Boy is Cajun for a young man, okay. Petit boy, I got you. I'm going to say this ahead. I'm going to jump in front of this. If we find out that this is all Derek Carr's doing, that either A, he doesn't have a shoulder injury and he made it up. I'm not saying any of this is true. Or if it's not that bad and he's using this as an excuse because he doesn't want to play for the Saints, or whatever the reason we find out this is Carr's doing, I ain't taking up for him. And y'all know that I've probably been one of the few defenders. So I'm just going to get that out front. I'm just saying I don't think that's the case. However, I don't know what the case is. I don't know it. Maybe none of this crap's true at all. Bill says I'm spot on. Lisa says she's praying to the Facebook gods we get Dart or Sanders. I'm praying to the Facebook gods that we don't. Although I don't pray to the Facebook gods, so I guess that's a false statement. I'm hoping that we don't. I mean, Earl got the. Why haven't the Saints said something yet? It's crazy. Good morning, Rocky. What else we got here? Rocky says this DC stuff stinks to hell, dating back to. Why are you shouting at me, Rock? Can't type in upper lower, or is your keyboard stuck in uppercase? It's all right. It does stink to hell, dating back to not showing his face. I got plenty to say on that too. We don't know who's full of what. Maybe the Saints and Derek Carr are full of crap. All right, I got some people asking me about the video, so I'm going to show it now. Now, here's another reason. When I was doing some looking through the other day, Friday or Saturday, whenever it was. Might have been Saturday because Friday when I didn't have a lot of time. I did post-game stuff, post-production stuff, and then by the time I was done with post-production stuff, it's time to go to the Pelicans game with my girls. So I took Friday night off. I think it was Saturday. I went through looking through a lot of stuff. And I came across, did any of y'all know this, by the way, that David and Derek Carr are starting their own podcast? Have any of you heard this? Yeah, they're doing this, and I stumbled across it. They're trying, I guess, be like the Kelsey brothers, except they don't have any personality. I'm not trying to be mean, but I watched about the first episode. There's only one episode of them. It's easy to find. I don't remember what the show's called, but it's like 3 videos on the page, and one of them is Derek and David together. And it was posted 6 days ago. So this doesn't mean that it was filmed 6 days ago. But if you knew you had a shoulder injury, okay, wouldn't you kind of talk? Let me put this up there. I didn't play any sound because no sound's needed. It is the most, I couldn't even get through like 6 minutes of it. It's so boring. I'm not trying to bash. Good. Start a podcast. Everybody start a podcast. You have a podcast. I have a podcast. We have a podcast. Everybody's got a podcast. Oprah, you get a podcast and you get a podcast. So you don't need to hear it. I promise you. But this was posted 6 days ago. I have no idea. I'm guessing it was in California. I have no idea. I don't know. Does it look like anything's wrong with Derek Carr here? I mean, even if this was, when would you, if you were going to post something 6 days ago, do you think you would film it like 3 weeks ago? No. I mean, it wouldn't make sense. Make something make sense. When's the most likely time this was filmed? Within the past week and a half? Gabe says, let's not act like throwing a football on pads and saying, no, but you don't have to be throwing a football. Nothing's wrong with this dude's shoulder. He's wailing his arms around and doing his thing. I'm going to keep it up there again it's 1 minute and 16 seconds. It's almost over. But is it just me? Is it just me? Let's put it up there again as background. I don't think it's just me. Rocky says it's a shame. Shoulder my ass. Christopher, yeah, he has a shoulder injury, but him and his brother started their own podcast. Now, you don't need to have a good shoulder to start a podcast, but you would think in this podcast, if you had a effed up shoulder, I almost said the word. I don't want to use the F word on the show. I'll say a lot of stuff, but I'm trying not to use the F word. I don't think I've ever said it yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I don't know. Whatever. But if you had an effed up shoulder and you were starting a podcast, don't you think you would want to break the news yourself with your brother and talk about it? If you had a messed up shoulder, do you think you'd just be moving your arms around like nothing's happening? Make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm starting to get it. And there you see it. There, I mean, again, Gabe's right. You don't have to have, I mean, you could have shoulder injuries, I guess, and do a podcast. But he doesn't look like he's doing anything to protect that bum shoulder of his. Doesn't make sense. You know, we say on the show, we steal from Judge Judy. If it doesn't make sense, it isn't true. A-Town says the podcast was filmed last Tuesday. I don't know how you know that, but even if that's true, okay. I mean, I think it went up 6 days ago. That doesn't mean that it was filmed that day. But again, so 6 days ago is last Tuesday. Even my Shaw Mather can figure that out. That's 3 days before we all found out. If you're going to film a podcast and start something with your brother, would you film something 3 weeks ago and put it up 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later? No, you wouldn't. It doesn't make sense. Who are we blaming here? Does it matter who's to blame? I think it does. Because there are a few of us, including people in this podcast, who've been taken up for this dude. But I'm not saying it's all him. I'm not saying, again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to be all over the place with this, but I'm going back and I'm throwing my old sports writer hat back on right now. And if I were sitting in a room and the story came out of nowhere, let's say back in 1994, and ESPN reported a story that, I don't know, Brett Favre. Let's say I'm sitting in a newsroom in Milwaukee. And in 1994, a report comes across the ESPN wire. And Brett Favre has broken his ankle and he's out for the season, sources say. You know what would happen in that newsroom back in 1994? Whoever reported for the Milwaukee newspaper and the Milwaukee TV stations would go out and confirm it on their own. And if they couldn't confirm it, I don't think they'd write a story about it. I got to be honest. I don't think we wouldn't write a story back then that said the Times-Picayune. If something happened to, I don't know, go back to 1998, Saints draft, give all their picks away for Ricky Williams. And then after the Saints draft Ricky Williams, 2 weeks later, some ESPN report, who that daddy? Like I told you, he doesn't want to be here. Bullshit. I don't think that has anything to do with it. Don't get me started right now. Let me finish my thought. Go back to, and Ricky Williams, somebody finds out with a bum ankle, and ESPN reports it. I can promise you, if I was sitting in the newsroom with Tim Ellerby and Billy Turner, you don't know who they are. They ran the sports newsroom back then. Sitting in that newsroom back in that day, or I guess in 1998, it was Steve Rocker, whatever. Doesn't matter. We sat there and talked about it, and the people from up above were in the room, and we talked about it. We wouldn't just run with a story like that. If we couldn't confirm it ourselves, we wouldn't run with a story like that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So that leads to why he would do it and who that daddy says. And a lot of people think, and I would be willing to bet more people. And look, if this turns out to be the case, I'm not saying it's definitely not the case. If it turns out to be the case, I'm not going to defend his ass. If it's because he doesn't want to be here, that doesn't really make sense to me that he would have. Why would he sign a contract? If he didn't want to be here, he wouldn't have signed the contract. So we're going to go through things that make sense and don't make sense. If Derek Carr didn't want to be here, he would hold the Saints' feet to the fire before he signed the contract and said, you owe me such and such, and if you don't give it to me, cut me, because he would get more than $20 million somewhere else. You may not think he would, but he would. I promise you. I promise you the Pittsburgh Steelers would have gave him more than $20.4 million. And meanwhile, the Saints would be stuck eating a $50 million cap hit this year when they didn't have $50 million to eat. So Derek Carr basically did the Saints a favor. Let's talk about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. If he didn't want to do the Saints a favor and he didn't want to be here, then he wouldn't have done the damn favor. I'm not showing, but all this few teams wanted him. I don't give a damn if one team wanted him. I promise you would have got more than $20 million. You can hate Derek Carr all you want. It doesn't make sense that he wouldn't get more than $20 million. That's what he's getting with the Saints right now. That's what he's getting. That's what he's guaranteed to get. His contract goes into next year. I'm telling you right now, if he didn't want to be here, he had no incentive to go through all this sham. I'm not saying that sometimes people do things that don't make sense. But he's out making a podcast, flailing his arms around, not telling anybody in his podcast. You'd think he'd want to break it to the public, right? Instead of Ian Rappaport coming out with it and Diana Rossini coming out with these cryptic tweets later on. Earl said he wanted out, but he's doing it in a super shady way. Starting to think we gave him too much credit, thinking he wouldn't have signed it. Maybe we are. Gabe says he could have heard it doing his intense training sessions on Friday. Right. Man, he was working hard. Gabe also says the Titans would have gave him $100 million just not to be stuck with Levis. I don't know about $100 million. If they would have gave him something, then they would have had to have to draft Cam Ward or they could trade it. Not that one. Christopher Fava says should have gotten Baker Mayfield instead of 2 years ago. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that part of it, but hindsight's 2020. And go back 2 years, there isn't a single person in this scroll here that if they would have taken Baker Mayfield over Derek Carr, wouldn't have laughed their asses off. It said, look at this stupid Mickey, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to hear hindsight. I don't want to hear it. Hindsight doesn't work with me because I know what I would have said. I would have said out of your cotton picking mind. Jason Sykes says, we actually made this bum quit. Good riddance. Take these lame-ass Raider fans with you. You know, that's another thing. The Raider fans, they've been begging for Derek Carr back since they got rid of him. The only ones that hate Derek Carr are you. Y'all are the only ones that hate Derek Carr, by the way. Just saying. Tim Leach says it's the season of lies and deception in the NFL. I just don't know what is true. I got some things here. Okay, hang on. Possibilities. What are the possibilities? I'm asking y'all to tell me. And who that daddy? Go ahead. You can say whatever you want. All right. In fact, you know what? Let's show it. Either the Saints knew that they had a bum shoulder and they couldn't trade him, or this is his plan to leave anyway. Maybe. Oh God. Well, I knew I was going to have to talk about this guy at some point in the show. It has to come up, right? Can't go through a show like this without talking about the rat. It's just not going to happen. Jason Sykes, they don't stink. Best thing could have happened. Bro, we don't need to win. It's with this fake-ass lame what? Give me Rattler and let's see what happens. That's not a... the only, and I've seen this, okay? Seen this. I feel no differently about this today than I felt last week or 4 weeks ago or 3 months ago or whatever. Spencer Rattler, you go with Spencer Rattler, then you are endorsing losing on purpose. Because that's what happens. Spencer Rattler equals 3-15 at best. Maybe 4-13 if you're lucky. Lance says Teddy Two Gloves. He's coaching in high school football. He didn't want to come back and play football. Anyway, I don't think that's the answer anymore. Would have been maybe a few years ago, but not today. Charles, I don't believe you. You wouldn't have taken Mayfield, but you weren't happy when they took Carr. I'm sorry. You probably telling the truth. I'm just sorry. All these people that come out of the woodworks and say they hated Carr, I can go back 2 years ago, and I'd say 85% were happy that Derek Carr was here. 10% were in the middle, and 5% was, he's a bum, he's mediocre, blah, 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 blah. Hardly anybody. I can tell you right now, it's BS. I just don't believe you. You might be telling me the truth. I don't believe you. Sorry. Apathy. You're right. Top 3 pick in the NFL draft is what happens with Rattler. And some of you want that. Some of you want that. What does that get you? Nothing. Especially if, so you want a top 3 pick. Do you want to draft a quarterback now? Too? Or no? Earl's picks. Yep. I said it. Most Saints fans definitely didn't make him want to stay from day one. I wouldn't have shown my face in the city off season either. People saying stuff to his kids about his dad. So what are the possibilities? Okay, here are some that I have. And you tell me if there are other ones besides the ones that we've mentioned already. He's really hurt, and it happened in the past couple of weeks. Actually, not even the past couple of weeks. I showed the video. He's really hurt. It happened like within the last week and a half. Did the team know? What did they know? Why does it make sense? Here's something else that doesn't make sense. If it's true, and you don't really, even if you don't really know what you're contemplating, and I understand why the Saints wouldn't say anything because they're waiting for Derek Carr to decide what he wants to do. Here's where I'm not going to take up with Derek Carr. These reports come out. Why wouldn't you just come out and say what's going on? Yeah, you know what? I do have a shoulder injury. We don't know how bad it is. I'm getting a second opinion. I'm contemplating. My options are this. Why would you just sit around and say nothing? Why would you let rumors persist? That doesn't make any sense. If the Saints knew, Why wouldn't you be a little bit more transparent? There's so many things I have problems with. By the way, if y'all are around the New Orleans area, even if you're not, I think you can get it online. I am guest of all days to be guest hosting a radio show here in New Orleans. It's this afternoon, 4 to 6 p.m. on 106.7 The Ticket. It's online. I don't know exactly how to find it, but you can find it. 106.7 here in New Orleans, The Ticket, from 4 p.m. Central to 6 p.m. I'll be hosting a radio show. Now, we're going to be talking about this, David Griffin, all sorts of things today. I do have a couple guests, but and that's going to be about the NFL draft. One of my guests today is Jim Rapier. We're going to talk about historical NFL drafts, which I booked this before I knew about Carr. So, but I'm still going to have Jim on. Maybe we'll talk more about that. Anyway, plenty to talk about in 2-hour period. I just want to know what's true. $20.4 million cap hit in 25. Here's another thing. Am I taking calls on the show? Yes, they take calls on the show. I don't know. I'll try to find the number for you, but I'll announce it plenty during the show. Yes, I'm taking calls. So any of y'all, if y'all want to call into the show instead of just typing in, who that daddy, you can call in. Love to hear any of y'all. Lance Dobard, Earl's Picks, Charles Mangus, anybody wants to call in, call in. William says, I can see the Saints trading a mid-round pick for Tanner McKee. He knows more system and would be a cheap option on a rookie contract. Carr is a con artist. Lance is really ticked off, he says. I'm trying to show it. He's really hot. A-Town says, Carr got hurt filming that god-awful podcast. Go. Lance defended this guy and he punked out on us. Maybe. We don't know the answer. Okay. Here's one more thing when it comes to the contract part of it. That I'm not defending Carr on this, but I am gonna. There are social media know-it-alls. You know how I like to jump on social media know-it-alls. Here's one part that does make sense. Okay, that people don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're saying Carr just signed the contract so he could steal the money and run. I don't know. Are you out of your box? Okay. If you think that Carr was keeping this a secret, if you think Carr was keeping this a secret so he could sign a $20.4 million restructured contract, you're insane. Okay. Multiple reasons why, and I'm going to tell you. And I've already kind of told you. First of all, he could have said, cut me, Mick. Eat my salary. Still would have got paid more than that. Doesn't make sense. Promise you. You can hate Derek Carr all you want. That part of it doesn't make sense. He still would have got paid probably more than he's getting paid now. So that part of it doesn't make anyone out there in social media saying he's just doing this because he wanted to sign his contract and then he could just, that's not it. Is it possible he doesn't really want to be here? Yeah, it's possible. I don't think that's it. If he didn't want to be here, he could have found a way out without making up something about his shoulder. Now, maybe something happened after he signed his contract that he doesn't like. That would make more sense. Like these rumors about the Saints drafting Shedeur Sanders. Maybe he doesn't like that. That would make sense. Maybe there are truth. Maybe found out there really are truth to the rumors. Maybe somebody inside the Saints organization said, we are thinking about drafting a quarterback early. These are a whole lot of maybes, right? Which is the point of all this. How are we reporting on shit that we don't even know what the answer is? No one knows the answer. They just throw this stuff out in hyperspace and tell you like it's true. How do we know it's true? Diana Rossini, quote, in a tweet, many around the league are wondering if there's more to the story. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Many around the league are wondering, including you. You're reporting on this, but you're wondering if there's more to the story. How about you report on it before you go out there and say, many are wondering if there's more to the story? Well, of course there's more to the story. Doesn't make any sense. All right, we're gonna take some more comments, but I'm gonna bring Gabe on now. I'm giving him not enough warning here, but get his take on it. Is anything I say that, I mean, besides the little things that you commented on, I mean, just the general overall thing, does any of this make sense to you?
I mean, yes.
What part?
It's clear these two sides do not want to continue together.
Then why?
Be it from Carr's side, be it from the Saints side. I think if you put all the pieces together, it's obvious they don't want to continue together, but they're married.
I'm not saying you're not true. I'm not saying you're not right. Okay. But if you're Derek Carr, what advantage could you possibly have to agreeing to restructure to a contract?
I mean,
why would you because there's no question. People could say he's quote unquote stealing. It's the opposite way. He did the Saints a huge favor by restructuring. He could have said, piss off. Why would he not restructure?
He did, but he also, I don't know the specifics to his pre and post restructure contract, but I know that he's guaranteed $69 million next year. That's his cap hit, rather.
That's his cap hit. That's not what he's not guaranteed.
But he's guaranteed.
That money's not guaranteed. Yeah.
No, I believe the only money left on his contract that isn't guaranteed is a $10 million roster bonus next year.
Well, he's already gotten some of it because some of it was transferred into a signing bonus. So he probably got a huge chunk of that money now. He wouldn't get that money later, but he's already got a big chunk of that, I believe. Go ahead.
So I don't really know the benefit to restructuring. Maybe.
I mean, here's one that would make sense if this is the truth. Earl says he didn't need pass a physical in order to restructure. Then
here's the thing.
If that's true, then he's really a snake in the grass. If he knew he was hurt and said, I'm going to do a restructuring,
here's the thing.
You can give me a big chunk of change and a signing bonus.
I've seen a lot of people say that he did request a trade before the new league year started, or before whatever important date that had just passed.
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah,
this is not true. He did not agree it was the Saints' option. That's not true at all. Derek Carr
have to agree.
He 100% had to agree. That is not true, J. Tucker Rafferty. Derek Carr, if he didn't want to restructure his contract, he could have said, I ain't doing jack to help you piss off. So go ahead now.
Here's the thing. And this is why I don't understand all of the ill will toward Derek Carr, even if he is hurt and he knew he was hurt. Him restructuring helped the Saints.
Unquestionably.
So this could be, we're all speculating. None of us really know.
Well, that's kind of my point on this whole thing. This whole one big speculation. So Rappaport, I guess part of the problem is not even as much with Carr and the Saints as the whole reporting part of it. How do you report this? You don't even tell me which shoulder it is. I'm going to assume it's his throwing shoulder, but we're completely assuming. Okay. So whatever. But you throw this story out there, but you don't really have a lot of details. You just say he's got a shoulder injury and he's contemplating. Says sources. I mean,
the source is his agent. Let's not
probably
tiptoe around that.
So, but I guess the reporter in me says this is just a BS way to do something and throw a story out there to get clicks. I mean, we don't even know, okay, he's contemplating surgery and everybody's off running with the fact of, well, what are the Saints going to do now? They're going to go direct. Okay, he's contemplating surgery. Is it a 10% chance he's going to get surgery or is it a 90% chance he's going to get surgery? Nobody knows. If it's a 10% chance he's getting surgery, then you don't even have to worry about anything. I mean, somebody needs to do more reporting than this.
I mean,
you're a sports fan. You grew up in this big.
I don't know if
J
you can
school.
do more reporting on it because I don't know how much he's trying to figure out how to put this. This without kind of throwing him under a bus. This seems very Derek Carr driven.
It does.
This seems like something that a decision he is making.
But
he's contemplating surgery.
But if we're going to believe the respected reporters, which I'm not saying I don't necessarily do, then you got to believe Diana Rossini that the Saints knew about this before.
Well,
I'm not saying
I
you
believe
do or
all
you
the
don't.
reports said this was a lingering thing and this wasn't something that happened recently. Right?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it was said whether.
So that's why the Saints would know.
I mean, the Saints could have known. He could have told them last Wednesday. I mean, right?
He could have. I mean,
that doesn't say anything when. It doesn't say anything when.
The thing is I don't understand what there is to gain for either side. I mean, this could all of this is speculation.
That's why it doesn't make sense.
I don't want to put definitives out there, but I don't understand. Even if Derek Carr is the one driving this, I don't understand the ill will toward him because, as you said, he helped the Saints by restructuring. He 100% did. So maybe
which is why who that daddy he's lying doesn't make sense. He's lying doesn't make sense. You're helping the Saints, but yet you're throwing this shade out there. None of this makes sense. I mean, what if it's his agent like playing up a ploy? I don't. What if it's the Saints? What would he gain? What would he gain by this? They just takes the year off. What if it is the Saints? That's what I'm saying. What does Derek? It could be. I'm not saying it could be anyone, but what does Derek Carr gain by throwing it out there through his agent? That is quote unquote shoulder hurts. What does he gain by this? I don't understand. You can't trade someone with a bum shoulder. So what does he want to do? He wants to take the year off. I don't understand what does this get him?
I think this is how I see it. This is not based on much. I mean, it is purely speculative, but this is how I view it. I view it as Derek Carr has been told he is going to either start a portion of the season next year, whether he's going to be expected to mentor a young quarterback. There were reports about the Saints drafting a quarterback at 9 before this news, and they've ramped up after. Mm-hmm. We all saw how Kellen Moore treated Derek Carr in his opening press conference. He was very just dismissive of the whole thing. He wouldn't commit to anything about Derek Carr. So what if, like I said, speculative, all of this is based on what if. What if the Saints told him, we cannot afford it, does not make sense for us to cut you this year. So we will restructure your contract and you will be expected to mentor this quarterback. This could be Derek Carr saying, you know what, screw you. I want to play football. I don't want to mentor someone. I'm at the end
if you want to play football,
but
if you want to play football, if you're 34 years old and you want to play football and you don't want to play football here, then the last thing you would do is say, I have a shoulder injury true. Because if you have a shoulder injury and you're contemplating surgery, then you're going to miss the season. Who the hell's going to pay for a 35-year-old dude who's coming off a shoulder surgery? You certainly ain't going to get the money that you would have got.
It could be the surgery could be a quote unquote minor procedure, and they could tell the next team that he's perfect. This is every athlete
but the whole thing is
their way out.
Okay, but that's not what the report says. The report says that he's contemplating surgery that would end his season. He wouldn't have a season next year.
He's contemplating it, but he's not getting it yet.
No, I know. That's why I'm saying. We don't know what it is.
Devontae Adams had some lingering, mysterious hamstring injury last year until he got traded by the Raiders,
right?
And then he was mysteriously healed. Derek Carr, I seriously, if you want to get leverage, but right now Derek Carr has no leverage.
I agree.
Has no leverage in this situation.
100%, I completely agree.
If he says, I'm contemplating surgery, I would miss the entire next year. Why keep me around?
Here's the difference between him and
trying to get leverage back.
Okay, here's the difference between him. Here's the difference between him and Davante Adams. Okay, Davante Adams is a wide receiver. I don't give a rat's ass what kind of injury you say about a wide receiver. Davante Adams is Davante Adams. It is what it is. When you talk about a quarterback and a potential shoulder injury, and the rumors are that it could be season ending. Okay. First of all, you're stuck with this team for right now, for sure. Okay. That's number one. Number two, if you do have this quote unquote, so you're either going to find out you're going to have the shoulder injury. Nobody's going to take you with the shoulder injury. So if you have this quote unquote shoulder injury,
someone would.
Hold on. And you're going to miss the season. Okay. Then you're stuck with the Saints. And then next year, There's no such thing as a minor shoulder injury that makes you miss a season. No such thing. Okay. No one is going to take a chance and no one's going to pay a 35-year-old quarterback the kind of money that he would get paid by coming and balling out for the Saints, which is what he had a chance to do. There's no way the Saints are going to sit him. Okay. This is all under Derek Carr would benefits almost none from this story. He benefits. I can't imagine how. I mean, I hear you, but it only hurts him. No one's going to want to take a chance on a dude with a bum shoulder. They're just not.
But Jim, you're missing the point. He doesn't have a bum shoulder.
I agree. He probably doesn't. We agree on that.
The team cannot tell him, no, your shoulder is fine. You cannot have surgery.
That's correct.
The one thing that Derek Carr has that is completely controlled by him is his health.
Okay.
So if he says
that doesn't give him any leverage, though.
It does, because he can say, I do not want to play here next year. And then he forces the Saints to go in another direction. And he can get playing time. Or, I mean, maybe he just doesn't want to mentor someone.
Doesn't make sense. Maybe he doesn't want to mentor someone. That doesn't mean.
I mean, we saw it with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers wanted no part of mentoring Jordan Love. And
but he still was there for 2. He was still there for 2 years with Jordan Love there, though, or 3 years, or however long it was he was with Jordan Love there.
But he was also in better shape than Derek Carr right now, in the sense that Aaron Rodgers had more years left in him. I don't think Derek Carr will play until he's 40.
That's pure speculation. I guarantee
all of this is pure speculation.
Exactly. That's my point. It doesn't make what you're telling me. I hear you. I understand you, but it doesn't make sense to me.
None of it makes sense.
No, and I just don't think that. And look, the Derek Carr, people that hate Derek Carr, they're not going to give him any benefit of any doubt. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. You're entitled to your own opinion. And that, by the way, the reason why I'm not we're showing, I'll show some comments in a minute, but they're all the same shit. Okay. None of this makes sense. It still doesn't make sense to me. If your Carr, you're going to throw out there, let me make up a rumor about myself. Let me just make up. What can I make up about myself? I know I can tell everybody I've got a bum shoulder. And then I'm thinking about, so what? So the Saints will trade you? What are you going to get for a quarterback who's contemplating shoulder surgery? Nothing. If he's lying, even if he's lying, you're still not going to get anything.
If he gets his way and he gets moved, he's magically healthy again. Look at that.
Here, by the way, here's why I don't show every comment, okay? And back-to-back comments, okay? No one knows jack crap, okay? No, I don't know anything. Gabe doesn't know anything. Y'all don't know anything. And here's why I don't show every comment, okay? Because in back-to-back comments, we have this. Charles Mangus, Carr will not play till he's 40. JD, of course he could play till he's 40. If healthy, why not? It's all about perception and what you like and don't like.
Notice how when we're talking, we don't use definitives. I never said he will not play until he's 40. I said he probably will not.
Right.
Probably is very key in there. I don't think Derek Carr will play until he's 40 years old. There's only a handful of quarterbacks who do.
Look, again, I'm just trying to find something that makes sense. I still haven't heard anything that makes sense. I still haven't.
I think he's unhappy. And I don't think the two sides. I don't think the two sides really.
Saints might be unhappy.
They might be. Yeah, I think they are.
So then,
which is why before this whole thing started,
here's what would have made
there were rumors of them going quarterback at 9.
Okay, but here's my thing.
They're unhappy with their quarterback.
Here's what they could. I don't disagree. They might be. Okay, they may or may not be. I don't think we know the answer to that. I actually think the Saints probably are okay with Carr, and maybe Carr is like, just feels like. I think Carr's probably more than anything. Carr's never felt loved in the city. Okay. Whatever.
And there's no reason for him to have felt loved.
100%. I don't necessarily think it's probably with the Saints. I think it's as much with the people of this town, like just throwing shade all over him than anything.
Before we do that, let me get to Nolan real quick. Why would the Saints fix his contract if they knew about his injury? Because they needed to fix his contract. The quarterback
couldn't go forward.
Was the easiest to restructure.
Correct. They could not go forward. Okay, they could not get cap compliant, or they could, but it would have cost them doing a lot of other drastic things if Carr didn't agree to restructure. Jay, you're wrong. Okay, I don't care what anybody said. He had to agree to restructure. Okay, they couldn't. exercise an option to restructure his contract. That's not how this works. You have to agree. Now, he's still getting a big chunk of money, but don't get me wrong. It's not like he's screwing himself if he restructures. He's still getting a big, because they're converting a bunch of that money into a roster bonus, or not a roster bonus, into a signing bonus. Mm-hmm. So he's still, instead of getting it over the course of time, he gets a big lump in his check, which does do him a favor as well. However, in the grand scheme of things, if both sides didn't want to be a part of one another, the Saints could have said, we'll restructure and then we'll trade you and we'll just eat part of the salary, which they're probably going to have to eat part of it anyway. So this is my whole thing. Again, if he didn't want to be here and the Saints said, you know what, if you don't want to be here, because let's be honest. If you're a team and you got a disgruntled quarterback, you could have disgruntled running back or disgruntled run. The Saints have shipped off disgruntled players before. It doesn't make sense that you would keep a disgruntled quarterback. So if he really didn't want to be here and he says, I really don't want to be here, then they say, we'll restructure your contract. We'll have to eat part of it, but we'll find a partner. And I promise you can hate Derek Carr all you want, but they would have found a partner for Derek Carr, i.e. the New York Giants or the Tennessee Titans or the Pittsburgh Steelers, or somebody would have taken Derek Carr, especially if you were paying a big chunk of his salary. You could have gave him away for basically free, and you would have been you would have made it okay, so where you could move on, he could move on. But neither one of them wanted to want to do that.
I don't think it's far-fetched by any means to say that Mickey Loomis is stingy with the cap. Can we agree with that?
Stingy. I don't know.
Maybe stingy is not the right word.
Loose. He's like loose, which is kind of the opposite of stingy.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Though. I don't really know the word I want to use if it's not stingy. Stingy made sense in my head, but here's the thing. I guess this would be stingy, and this is, I guess, where I'm coming from.
Okay.
For this question. You said it wouldn't make sense for the Saints to keep an unhappy quarterback, but would Mickey Loomis want to have a $69 million cap hit next year for a guy who's playing for another team?
No. Which is why if you wanted to another way, you could have just cut back. You know what? If it's as bad as everybody's now thinks it is, because they hear this stupid report and they actually just believe people just believe everything in this report. It's automatically assumed now. Everybody in this chat, okay, and I say everybody, I mean at least almost everybody in this chat and almost everyone I've spoken to just automatically believes that Derek Carr's not playing next year. And what are the Saints going to do? Okay. If this were the case, okay, if they've come to this impasse, there's no question in my mind the Saints would have said it. If they couldn't have figured out a way to trade him, they would have said, as much as it would have hurt the team, as much as they thought they couldn't afford to do it, they would have just found a way to say, you know what, screw it, we're going to eat the cap hit beforehand. It sucks. I don't know how we're going to do it, but they figured it out ways before, and they would have just eaten the $50 million, and they could have moved on from Derek Carr. But no, they went out of their way not to move on from Derek Carr. So that's why if they did know that this was happening, they would have never done this. And I don't believe at the same time it doesn't benefit Derek Carr enough to go this route. There are other things he could have done. He could have said, let's just move on. I got this big chunk of change. I can go get another chunk of change somewhere else.
I don't really know if the Saints could have made the cap work this year. I mean, obviously they could have. They make it work every year. They do. But I don't know if it – I really do. I think the Saints looked at this situation as our best way forward with making this cap work is restructuring Carr. Point blank, period.
I just don't think – I think that when you make a move like this and you talk about what it means for next year and a $70 million hit for next year, you go into this and you make this move thinking that not only are you restructuring this year, and I've said this before, but you think you're going to restructure next year too, which means you think you have Carr for at least 2 more years, which is why none of this makes sense that I thought the Saints wanted a quarterback in the draft. I still don't believe they want a quarterback in this draft. They might have to now if they know more than what they're letting on and that he really is going to be hurt. They may have to. Still don't think it's a first-round pick. I still don't think it's Shedeur Sanders. I don't necessarily even think it's Jackson Dart. I think it's more like a Tyler Shaw or someone like that. However, all that being the case, none of this makes sense if they knew ahead of time They could have found a way to eat that cap money instead of saying, I'm going to put myself in a $70 million hole next year. Mickey, you can hate Mickey Loomis, you can hate Derek Carr. That doesn't make sense either, because you wouldn't put yourself in a $70 million hole next year to save 50 million, to save 30 million, really, to save 30 million right now. That doesn't make sense.
We're talking about if the Saints knew. There's nothing to know. I think that's the thing. I really think this is Derek Carr trying to get leverage back. I really do. He's put himself in a situation.
It doesn't give him. I hear what you're saying, and I get it. I guess it could make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but that just, to me, that doesn't give him any leverage. It just doesn't. I mean, I hear you.
It's not a whole lot of leverage, but it's the most leverage that you can get. The most leverage that you can get as a player is to straight up tell the team, I am not playing. But here's the thing. If you say that you are not playing, like Le'Veon Bell did a few years back, you get penalties. There are financial penalties, and there are voids in your contract. But
that's right.
If you say, oh, I can't throw, my shoulder hurts, the team cannot.
But he also has to he would actually have to go under a knife. Okay. Trust me. There ain't no way in hell that he's going to say he's going to get shoulder surgery and say so. He would actually have to go under the knife for that to be true. You can't just say my shoulder hurts, and then you don't play for 17 games. No, he would have to go to the knife. So nobody's going to go get unnecessary surgery for that. That's ridiculous. Hold on 1 second.
No, we see cleanup surgeries.
Hold on, I got to do this. We got business. Hold on. We told you earlier we'll let you know more about how Evangeline Securities can help you figure out what your family-run or privately held business might be worth and whether it's time to sell. How do they do it? Not by doing surgery on somebody's shoulder. They do it after a complimentary valuation of your company. If you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians, Dr. Nick Braden and Dr. Ron Hemelt and the folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process from established private equity funds from around the world. They will maximize the return for the founder and his or her family. Evangeline Securities is the top producer on their platform. There are very few companies like them in this area. None with their dedication and success. They are fully licensed and ready to serve you. So get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important, and it ain't Derek Carr's shoulder. What's really important, Gabe?
The rest of your life.
Absolutely. You can find them at www.evangelineSecurities.com. All right, let's show a couple comments here. Lance says that's who he was trying to remember. Le'Veon Bell. Terrence says it gives them leverage to keep them from drafting a quarterback.
No, not necessarily.
Think so.
Because this is going to become a game of who blinks first. It is clear. So here's the one thing we know, right? The one thing we know about this situation is that one of the sides, be it the Saints, be it Derek Carr, be it, I don't know, Kellen Moore as an individual, one individual at least in this situation is not happy. Can we agree on that?
Mm-hmm.
Someone wants something that they are not getting.
Okay.
So this has now become a game of who blinks first. Will Derek Carr go under the knife? Will he go as far as to go under the knife to miss this season to try and get his way? Or will the Saints move on from him and just say, we don't need this unnecessary drama. We've got the 9th pick. We're happy taking a quarterback there. I think we've got two outcomes here. Well, we've got more than two.
Noah Man says, if it's not being let go, what the hell does Carr want? Maybe Carr doesn't want anything. Maybe this is all a bunch of BS, or maybe there is some truth to it. Maybe it's not nearly as seen. There's a whole lot of maybes in there. You get that? That's my point. We don't even know what the hell's going on, but we have to talk about it here. And again, everyone is just assuming. You're just assuming that he's going to be gone for the season and the Saints are going to be moving on. That's another question. Okay. Forget about all that crap. Okay. Forget about why. Okay. Here's another why. Why are we all just assuming that this report is 100% true? And not only are we assuming that this report is 100% true, but we're assuming that the worst part of it, we're going to go straight to the worst part of it. An asteroid might hit the earth tomorrow. Oh my God, there's panic in the world. Oh, wait, there's a 0.2% chance. Okay, well, it might, but you know what I mean? So how do we even know? We don't even know how bad this is. We don't know anything about it because no one's talking.
No, but here's why we believe it, because one side is leaking this information, and I believe it's Derek Carr's side. I believe this is Derek Carr's side's ploy to try and get some leverage to get what they want. I don't know what it is they want. I would presume he wants out or he wants starting guarantees. He wants something that he is not getting. That's what I would assume. And so here's my two guarantees.
Okay.
Unless he, because once again, it's unclear what he wants. Unless Derek Carr gets what he wants before the season, I believe that if he stays with the Saints, he's not playing next year. I believe he will go under the knife if he doesn't get what he wants.
That doesn't make any effing sense. That makes even less sense than me passing up ice cream at the dinner.
If he is cut or traded post June 1, I believe he will start next year for another team and play a full season.
I don't think there is any advantage to cutting him post June 1 now.
I don't think there is, other than getting rid of a player.
So why would you wait to June 1? You cut him tomorrow. I think it's the same thing.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to pretend like I know all the ins and outs of those financials. But I am saying I believe that if he's on the Saints next year, unless they give him what he wants, because he could want more money. I don't know.
What more money?
Here's the thing. I've got an interesting question after here in a second.
Okay.
So I think if he stays with the Saints, I think unless he gets what he wants, he goes under the knife. I don't think he plays. If he's playing for another team, if he gets what he wants, if that's what he wants, I think he plays. That's where I'm at with this. I think one of those two things is going to happen. I don't think he's actually got a real shoulder injury. I think this is him trying to get leverage back. Troy, let me just say this. Troy, I'm tired of you. I'm just sick of you trying to stir the pot.
Just ignore him.
If I remember correctly, you're a Dolphins fan, and I don't want you talking about any injury-prone or bad quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, I'm not. If you've noticed, I've completely ignored him. All right, look, I'm gonna come back to you in a little bit. I'm gonna go 10 more minutes, I guess, or so on this. I'm gonna bring you back. I got to bring you back for the man versus machine segment, and we'll see what else trouble. What other kind of trouble?
Can I?
Yeah, 100%.
On radio, they call hang up and listen. Do you know if it's possible to restructure a contract twice in the same year? I don't think it's ever happened before.
Well, I don't see why it's not possible, but you would have to restructure under the current guidelines.
But as long as was he restructured in this year or last year's league year?
He was restructured before the end.
The league year?
Yeah, but there's no advantage to anyone, I don't think, to do it now. I don't think.
No, I'm just trying to think, because
but yes, there's no rule. I don't think there's any rule.
True. If the crazy thing is true, and maybe this is a real.
Here's the thing: if he really wanted to be gone, and here's one. Okay, I'm gonna show this. Because he wants out. Are you living under a rock? Says Praise YJ. I'm not living under a rock. If he wanted out, he could have got out. I'm telling you right now, he could have got out.
This could be his way to get
the Saints would not make.
We're not going to pretend to know what he wants.
You're correct. The Saints would not make a disgruntled quarterback stay here. They just wouldn't. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know, though, because like I said, I don't think Mickey Loomis would be okay with the $69 million cap hit of someone who's playing on another team. Because I believe that's
what I'm saying. But you wouldn't have had to have a $69 million cap hit. You could have
no, but he might not have expressed his desire to leave until now.
He wouldn't. No, look. If he did that, then he's the biggest asshole who's ever played football in the play. He's like
this.
That's like giant gaping.
Did the reports of the Saints looking at quarterbacks come out before or after he signed his contract?
Well, there's no they were talking about drafting a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's always been talked about.
Different.
The reports of, but you don't do that until after you have to sign the contract. That doesn't come up. That wouldn't come up in March.
So that could be a development that kind of pushed it over the edge. But the reason I ask about the restructured contract is I just wonder if this was a legit thing. If he there's a small. I mean, like I said, I've said it a billion times, and I'm sorry to people sick of hearing me say it. No one knows anything right now, so there's a small percentage.
That's the point.
He is telling the truth. This could be a legitimate lingering shoulder injury. It
is also
the likely outcome.
It is also possible that there's absolutely nothing wrong, and whoever leaked this info to Rappaport and he ran with it, and it turns out that my shoulder's not hurt. I don't know where he got that from. That's also a possibility. So but I respect Ian Rappaport. Okay, I mean, good for you.
I do. He and Schefter, who both reported on this, and Diana Rossini as well. They're three of the most credible NFL reporters, along with Jay Glazer.
Diana Rossini is only saying the only thing she's saying is that the Saints knew about this. Where did she get that from? And so maybe this is coming from the Saints. Maybe they all have the same source.
I mean, if the Saints knew, she's checked.
So, but here's my thing, though. If their source, what if their source is all the same source and it's inside the Saints organization? I mean, no one said anything that's coming from the Carr side.
It could be. But the reason I ask about the restructure is because if this is a real legitimate shoulder injury, maybe they just go ahead and restructure him again to account for him
let me ask you
the year.
Let me ask you a question, okay? You don't want to work somewhere, but you're tied to them for 2 years, okay? All right, let's just say, but you really don't like it.
Yeah.
But you can get out of it if you let someone cut into your shoulder. Would you do it?
Let me clarify. Am I getting paid? What is Derek Carr getting paid this year?
I mean, they'll just say you're going to get
salary.
20.4 million, but he also
am I getting paid 20.4 million, or am I getting paid a normal person's salary?
You're getting paid 20.4 million.
I would let people do whatever they want to my shoulder for 20.4.
You'd be a frog under a microscope
for $20.4 million. I would let someone give a.
I could find a better way to get out of a contract than having someone sticking. Now maybe it's because I'm older and I'm afraid that I ain't gonna wake up. Any surgery I have these days, you never know when you're this age. You could you could have a meniscus tear or something, whatever. Doesn't matter, and you don't know if you're gonna wake up. So
I know you want to move on, so I will leave you with two thoughts.
All right, go ahead.
This is an old adage that my friends and I have said for a long time. When it comes to whether or not
Gen Z speaking, boys and girls,
when it comes to whether or not someone would or wouldn't do something, everyone has their price. No matter what it is, everyone has their price.
That's true, but I could think of better ways to get out of things than to say, "Cut me, Mick, cut me."
And then I will, literally and figuratively. But then I will end with this. Like I said, I believe this is a contest, and we're going to see who blinks first. And I'm really intrigued to see it because there are so many moving parts to this. And as someone noted, right up to draft time, I mean, we're right there. We're down to the wire. I'm intrigued to see what happens, who blinks first.
Yeah. All right. We'll have you back on in a little bit for the man versus machine. I wanted to get your input on this because I didn't want it to be just me for an hour and a half or whatever the hell it is. But I got, since I've clicked the last 5 minutes, I see there are 27. I've clicked off the comments. There are 28 comments in the queue. I'm going to get to some of them, even if they're asinine, because that's what I do here.
UBN, do you know doctors? There are some scummy doctors out there. They would absolutely cut into a shoulder that's perfect.
I'll see in a couple minutes. Absolutely. That part's true for sure. All right. Let's get to some of these comments. It is Mano E Monday after all. Let me see what we got here. What have I missed? I don't even know. All right. Next move is Shador and Coach Prom leaked it. That didn't mean jack. Look, I'm going to say this again because Praise, you're new to the Dattitude family. Welcome. If you're not new and you've just been listening or you use a different name or whatever it is, whether it's your first time on the show, whatever, I'm going to tell you what I've been saying all last week. Okay. That doesn't change. This doesn't change my opinion on Shador Sanders because we're going to talk about what comes next in just a minute. Okay. There's a reason why Coach Prime is basically begging for the Saints to show Shador Sanders love. Okay. It's nothing to do with Derek Carr or anything else. It has to do with the fact of look at the draft board. If Shador Sanders doesn't go to the Saints at 9, let's say he slips past the Browns and the Giants and whatever. Okay. And he's sitting there at 9. Okay. If the Saints don't take Shador Sanders, where does he go? Well, first off, he almost certainly drops to 21 at the earliest. Okay. And if the Steelers don't take him, he probably goes in the second round. So that's why Coach Prime, quote unquote, leaked it. He ain't leaked jack. He's begging. Coach Prime is begging that his son goes in the first round. And his best chance that the Giants don't take him is the Saints at number 9. He doesn't want Shedeur Sanders falling at 21. And he certainly doesn't want him falling in the second round. And if the Saints don't take him, both of those things are possibilities. Reginald Walker. Think we got off easy. I would have paid $100 million to move on with it. That's funny. All right. I don't agree with you, Reggie, but it's funny. He would have paid $100 million to move on from Carr. He's a cancer. He's a poor leader, and he simply does not have, quote, the Saint makeup. What the hell these days is the Saint makeup? They were 5-12. Was Dennis Allen part of the Saint makeup? Is Darren Rizzi part of the Saint makeup? Who's been part of? Brandon Cooks wasn't part of the Saint makeup. He got dished off to Siberia, and now he's back. He wasn't part of the Saint makeup before, but now he is. I don't know. That's kind of whatever. Lance, Broncos did it for Russell, made it more palatable for teams. Mick did what he had to do to make the cap space. Completely different situations. Russell, they were able to find a way to get rid of him after a year. The Saints wanted to get rid of Carr. They wouldn't have done this. They would have just said, let's find ways to part ways before we do all this crap. If the Saints wanted to get rid of him, okay? So that's where there's another comment that I missed from before that I wanted to show and I meant to, but Gabe was on a roll and I didn't want to stop him. Where is it? I might have to just kind of quote it without seeing it. Paraphrase it. Anyway, I don't know where it is now, but there's a quote from before that basically said, I got to show it. Damn, was it that far? We got a lot of comments this morning. Here it is. Larry Gibson. Kellen wants to build his team with a new quarterback. To me, that's the rub. That doesn't make any sense. Because if he wants to do it with his own quarterback, they would have never gone this far with Derek Carr. They would have got rid of him already. So that's why it doesn't make sense to me. None of this makes sense that it's from the Saints side. Now, if you look at it from the outside, Diana Rossini's reporting this, and she's saying the Saints knew, it makes sense that the Saints are giving somebody some scoop somewhere, unless she's just making it up. Just saying. Hello, T-Mama. Welcome this morning. They cut him. They're not going to cut him. They're not going to cut him. I think they can cut him at this point. Would they take a look at Aaron Rodgers? They might take a look at Aaron Rodgers anyway. Please, God, no. I mean, look. I mean, what would I choose if I had to choose between the three as we kind of transition into what happens next? Regulars of the show know what I feel about the Saints drafting the quarterback at number 9. It's ridiculous. Your mortgage in the future to draft a quarterback at number 9. Is it more likely now? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe this whole thing is one big. Maybe they're both like scamming each other. I don't know. I just don't see him drafting Shedeur Sanders at 9. I just don't. I don't see him drafting Jackson Dart at 9. I don't. If I had to pick one of the two, I don't know. I'd flip a coin, I guess. I mean, I've seen film on both sides that one says Sanders is the better quarterback and the better prospect, and then another one that says Jackson Dart is a better fit for Kellen Moore because he's more mobile. I don't know. The point is, neither one of those guys are worth the 9th pick of the draft, in my opinion. So I'd rather wait to the second round if you're going to draft a quarterback now. So many other more important needs. What about all the Aaron Rodgers talk? Do you want to talk about the Saint way and quote unquote cancers? Do you know? Did you watch the Jets last year? I mean, he got hurt 2 years ago. You can't take anything away from that, but it's a effing circus. Do you want an effing circus here? Gabe says he'd be willing to bet this situation is settled quickly right after the draft. I think it's going to be settled before then. That's what I think. Chad says, what benefit is there to restructuring his contract now or place him on IR, going back to what Gabe was talking about? None, really. I mean, the only thing you get by putting him on IR is you get that spot. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I guess if you did, here's one thing that kind of makes sense, I guess, if you're the Saints and you knew you were able to restructure. If you're the Saints, okay, restructure. You don't want to play for us, fine, whatever. We can't find a trade partner for you, whatever. I don't believe that, but whatever. And then you free up some money to go sign someone like an Aaron Rodgers. Maybe. I guess at some point we're going to find out, I would hope. Right, Chad. Why would Carr not come out and say it? Why would he not come out and say he's fine? Why would he not come out and say anything? Doesn't have to be fine. He could be fine or not fine. Daddy said he would let people cut on him for the money. I wouldn't. You're not old like me then, Daddy. When you old like me, you don't let anybody cut on you unless they tell you have to. I mean, honestly, have to. Let's see. Smoke says he thinks his future with the Saints is uncertain. Well, I mean, of course it is, but it was when he signed it. I mean, it's uncertain. It's not uncertain for this season. Christopher Favre, the Steelers want him. Absolutely. Will Abear says, some people have issues that can or can't be operated on. If he doesn't want to play for the Saints, he could have non-essential, partly essential surgery to avoid playing. I don't know what surgery is surgery to me, buddy. You stick a knife in my arm or wherever you stick a knife. Whatever. Troy, you're more than welcome to participate in the show, by the way. You don't feel the same as me. That's fine. I don't want to sound like an old fogey when I say it this way. You're more than welcome anytime to participate. Anyone is to participate in the show. But at least have a little bit of respect. There's ways you can disagree with me all you want. I mean, Who Dat Daddy and I have been disagreeing for weeks and weeks and weeks, whatever. And I show almost all of his comments. Don't do it with, let's lessen up a little bit on attitude. That's where I'm not. I used to show all of those and I just don't anymore. I'm not showing, by the way, I'm also not showing anything that has to do with things that just don't make any sense whatsoever. People mentioning vaxes. We're not talking about. We're not doing anything that could potentially be political on the show, unless I absolutely have to. T Mama says it's a mess, period, and it has been, no doubt. Lance says he's got a lot of hate, lots of hate. They settled on keeping Carr with. That's why No, it's not about Kellen Moore. This is not about Kellen Moore. They settled on keeping Carr. That's why Kellen was non-committal. Not why Kellen was non-committal. Kellen Moore is probably non-committal because he at the time, they were probably still talking. My guess is nobody knew what the hell was going to happen at the time. A-Town. All right. This may seem asinine, he says, but what if Carr has a pimple on his shoulder that requires surgery and keeps him out all season? Again, you still got to go under a knife. Not going to go. I just don't think any normal, especially an athlete's not going under a knife and is not going to put out there, again, in my opinion. Oh, yeah. UBN says, why I'm not showing his got to make sense. Something like that. No, that's not why. Because I got like literally 500 comments in the queue this morning. I can't show them all. It's probably today is probably the most comments I haven't showed, if that makes any sense. I probably passed over more comments today and not shown more comments than maybe ever today. I knew it was going to be crazy. Cousins might be available. No. Although that would be pretty funny if Kirk Cousins came here for on a cheap contract, again, which ain't going to happen, and wanted to go beat up on the Falcons. That would be kind of funny. Nola Man says if they want a quarterback and want the 5th year, they can trade back in at 31, 32, but I don't care for either. We need a lineman. I agree. It doesn't change going forward. It doesn't change anything. Will Abear. I think all the quarterback draft prospects aren't better than Rattler outside of Cam Ward. You know what? I got to be honest, Will. I never thought I'd say this, although I kind of said it before. I don't think Spencer Rattler is an NFL quarterback, but I'm not so sure that Spencer Rattler is not better than Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. I mean, I don't know. The only thing I will say is I'm pretty certain Spencer Rattler is not an NFL quarterback. You can't know that Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart isn't an NFL quarterback until you actually see them play in the NFL to some degree. However, is that worth using your number 9 pick? I don't know, man. So what would you do if it's you, okay? You, Dattitude family member. It's on you. You either find a way to sign Aaron Rodgers for $15 million. I don't know. I'm guessing that's what it would cost. He's 41. I can't imagine. I don't know if he would even play for that. I don't know. I'm making up a number. Let's say it costs 15. Let's say 20 million. The Saints, I think they have that. I'd have to go look. However, they would basically be done with signing any other free agents. Whatever. Would you sign Aaron Rodgers? Would you draft a quarterback in the top 2 rounds? So that would mean either Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, or Tyler Shaw. Those are probably your only 3 options early, excuse me. Or would you go with the Rat? Now granted, this is all saying if. I mean, again, here I am assuming, I'm throwing it out there, the assumption that if the possibility of Derek Carr not being here. I still think, look, again, I want to know, what is the percentage that Derek Carr is not going to play this year? That's one thing I need to know. Is it a 10% chance he's going under the knife, he's going for the season? Or is it a 90% chance or somewhere in between? Larry, you're just determined. Kellen doesn't want Carr. How could you possibly know that? He just won a ring calling plays for a mobile quarterback. Kellen doesn't want Carr. You don't know that. He doesn't come. If Mickey Loomis says Derek Carr is going to be your quarterback for the next 2 years, he doesn't come here if he doesn't want Derek Carr. Period. Amen. Federico. If Carr is cut, it should be post June 1 to have 2025 dead cap of $20 million and $59 million on 2026. I could be wrong, okay? So I'll ask some experts and try to get this to you before the next show. I don't think it matters anymore if he's cut post June 1. That's before they've already restructured his contract. I am fairly certain that it doesn't matter. UBN says, you think Shedeur Sanders is bringing holes? Of course he is. That whole thing, anything involved in last name Sanders is going to be a cancer. I'm not a cancer, a circus. Who dat? You're older than me. Are you sure about that, my friend? You sure? I don't know. If you want to tell me how old you are, I will tell you how old I am. Who dat says he's had 2 surgeries for a lot less money. Well, man, you crazy then, because I ain't doing it. Praise says Shedeur at 9 is better than a damn tight end at 9. People done lost their minds. Look, I'm not really for the tight end at 9 either. However, I completely disagree. What makes people think that Shedeur Sanders is going to be this great NFL quarterback? Like, seriously, put him in last year as like grouping. He would have definitely, absolutely, no questions asked, been below Michael Penix last year as a prospect. Zero question he'd have been below Michael Penix last year. Now, Michael Penix did go at 8, shock of the century, but Michael Penix at the time was thought to go, what, 20th, 30th? I mean, come on. I don't know. I don't agree with that at all. Joseph Long says, we need a lot. One quarterback will not matter. You know, that's even more reason, in my opinion, to not go draft Shedeur Sanders. You still need to build in the trenches. Gabe says, hugely accurate arm, 74% completion last year. Played for Colorado. Yeah, I hear you. Praise says Shedeur is better than A-Rod or Dart. Again, I don't know. Oh, God. Can you imagine? Y'all, look, my head would explode. If this happens, my head would explode. You would want to watch this show for months. It'd be like must-see TV. Draft Shedeur and let him and Rattler fight it out. Terrence says, although he's a doubter, he'd go with Rattler. You know, I got to be honest. I think that right now, I know that a lot of you probably won't believe I'm going to say this, but if those are my only three choices, okay? If my only three choices are Aaron Rodgers, draft either Shedeur Sanders at 9, Jackson Dart at 9, or Tyler Shaw maybe at 40. If those are my only three options, I'm probably going to take going with the Rattler and hope they're going with the Rat and hoping I'm wrong. I really think that's what my answer is at this point. We got to kind of move. We're at an hour and 30 already. I really think that's where I'm at right now. I really think that's where I'm at. J-Rock says he thinks Michael Penix would have been picked by the Raiders in the last draft of 13. Maybe, you're right. But that's not where it was projected to go. But you might be right. Gary says the Saints need an O-lineman or it's a repeat of last year. Larry says about Kellen Moore that I don't know either. You're right. None of us know. I'm just calling. This is a what makes sense show. You're right. I don't know. I don't know. No one knows. Joseph says I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's pronounced Shuck. Okay, I apologize if I got that wrong. But I did say one of the options is to draft him at 40. He's not going to make it to this around at third. They either have to drop straight down or whatever. Yeah, and Lloyd Riley says the salary counts no matter what. Correct. So there's no advantage to doing anything with Carr. And John, I will give you your due. John B told us, everybody, I should have listened to John B. He told us that slop Carr was a bum. He told us. Should have been listening. John, I don't know that I've seen you comment on this show before. So I don't think you told, when you say told y'all, I don't think you meant this y'all. Owen Attilio says Rattler may be better with protection in the new coaches. Again, if those are my options, that's probably what I'm taking. And I'm going to prepare myself for 4-13 and be pleasantly surprised if I'm wrong. UBN. Carr is watching this laughing his ass off. No, he's not, UBN. He's making the next episode of his podcast with his brother David. I can't wait to watch it. I mean, did y'all see this earlier? If y'all missed it earlier, before I move on. Did y'all see this earlier? This is, again, I didn't want to subject my audience to the sound of this crap. This was the podcast that was put out 6 days ago. The Carr brothers, who don't even kind of have the personality of the Kelseys. Like, not even, they basically have the personality of two crows I heard outside of my window this morning. No offense. None, not meant to be offensive. I'm just stating fact. You would think that if you were going to start a podcast and you wanted people to pay, by the way, as of the time of this showing this morning, when we went on the air this morning, it had, and this has been up for 6 days, okay, a brand new podcast with Derek Carr and David Carr on YouTube had 6,300 views on it. 6,300. That's less views than one of my shows gets on an average basis across all of. Now that's across all of our platforms, Facebook, and YouTube. So maybe they got more somewhere else. I don't know. But 6,300 views. If you were going to build up a podcast, that's another thing. If you were going to build up a podcast and you wanted people to pay attention to it, don't you think if you talked about your shoulder injury before someone else got it out of nowhere, don't you think you would talk about it? Doesn't it make sense that you would talk about it and get people to watch your podcast? No one watched it. Lloyd Riley says, shoulder looks fine. Christopher Fava says, car looks fine to me. GP says that might have been the worst podcast in internet history. It wasn't good. John says they were playing golf, didn't show it. Shoulder must have been fine. Just saying. Just saying. Terrence says, there you go with logic again. Just saying. Make it make sense. Doesn't make sense. All right. I'll probably talk about it again a couple of times. By the way, if you're watching this and you're give me the like, the thumbs up. Won't do it now, Gabe. Anyway, thumbs up. No. Hit the like button. I don't know why it helps. They say it does. If you're not subscribed to our Dattitude YouTube page, please do. We have fun like this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday live at 11 a.m. Central Time. You can also watch after the fact. By the way, again, if you didn't hear me say it before, with the show that does take callers, by the way, I would be happy to actually hear some of you. And if you're a Dattitude regular and you come on the show, please come on the show. Fill up the phone lines. I don't know what the number is. You know what? Hold on. Let me find it for you. I am going to be guest hosting Eric Asher's radio show on 106.7 this afternoon at 4 p.m. Guest line number. Live TV again, baby. I don't know if that's the number or not. Let's see. Request line 504. Put this in the chat, Gabe. 504-260-1061. Well, that's the old. Maybe it's 1067 now. I don't know. I'll find out. It's either 1061 or 1067. 504-260. It's probably 1067. There you go. You can call in. Monday, today, this afternoon, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. I would love to hear, and I'll let you say whatever you want as long as it's not stupid. I mean, we'll have to cut you off if you get too dumb. And you can completely disagree with me. It says he's got a lot of call. By all means, y'all call this afternoon. And it's either 504-260-1061 or 260-1067. I will tell you what it is when I start the show. Here's another possibility. If Milroe in the third round, I didn't even mention him. That's a possibility. I am intrigued by Milroe. I don't think he's going to be an NFL quarterback, but I have as much confidence in Jalen Milroe being a quarterback as I do Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. So if you're if you've just got it in your head that that's what's going to happen, by all means. Angelia Page says Shedeur Sanders. All right. Again, I'm not going to spend any. I just want to give a golf clap to Rory McIlroy. I made a slide for him. Again, if you're not into golf, it was the craziest Sunday of Masters I've ever seen. Never seen anything like I saw yesterday. I mean, you know the old adage when you're watching a football game and someone says nobody wants to win this thing? That's kind of how it was with the man. Rory had a giant lead. Well, first off, he starts off out the gate slow. He double bogeys and bogeys. Bryson DeChambeau took a a very short-lived lead. I thought I'm going to hit this one, baby. I should have cashed out. That's a whole different story. Then Rory comes roaring back. Then, Rose comes out of nowhere. And anyway, long story short, Rory tried to give it away, but that first extra hole, he makes the putt and he finishes his career Grand Slam. 11th try. It took him until the 11th try. Congratulations to Rory McIlroy. I definitely wanted to get that in. So real quick before we move on, a couple more comments. Milroe equals Taysom. That's what I think. A lot of you think Taysom could be a quarterback. Maybe. Earl says if you grab Milroe and he doesn't work out at quarterback, you can still find a way to make him work in your system 100%. Who that daddy? Milroe's a gadget player, not accurate. He also says that's one of the best masks he's seen in a while. It depends on how you look at it. It was just crazy. It was definitely one where you didn't know. You thought you knew what was going to happen. Oh, wait, I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, wait, yeah, definitely Rory's going to win. Oh, wait, he might not win. And then it's like, oh, he's not winning. He's done. And then, holy crap, he came back. Good for him. All right. We are going to move on again. I might have a couple more things. If y'all still want to comment about the Saints, feel free to throw them up there. But I want to go to the man versus the machine segment of this show. And let's just say it has been a rough. When we did the reboot for man versus machine, I said we're wiping out the records. That apparently didn't help anything because man has sucked even worse. Now, you weren't here. So the last two man versus machines, we had Wednesday's man versus machine, which was your pick of Colin Morikawa. The machine took Rory McIlroy, and we said whoever was higher,
of course it did,
got the win. And guess what? We didn't even have to go with whatever was higher. The machine actually won. It got an outright, and I didn't follow it. But although I did,
the machine and everyone else.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so then, when you weren't here on Friday, I will have this. No question, there will not be a worse man pick than what I picked on Friday. I picked the Pelicans plus 14.5 against the Heat, and they lost by 49. The machine agreed with me. So hence, here we are. You're back here to claim the spot of man. Playing the role of man today is Gabe Henderson. Man is 0-4. It's got to be broken up. The machine is 2-2. What is the pick of the day?
Man is 1-4 when we come back on Wednesday. Manifesting it. Pick of the day, I'm going with Hawks or Magic minus 5.5 over the Hawks in the play-in game.
Okay. And what's your reasoning?
My reasoning is, despite what we saw the other day, I mean, those aren't the teams that are going to show up in the play-in tournament, but the Magic are allowing just 105.5 points per game this season. It's the top scoring defense in the NBA, whereas the Hawks allow the fourth most points in the league at 119.3. I think the Magic are even better at home. I think they've got more stars, even though Trae Young typically shows up in the postseason.
Yeah.
They no longer have DeAndre Hunter, who's in Cleveland. I just think the Magic are going to get it taken care of. I think they're going to win rather easily.
All right. So what do you think the machine is going to say? This is another fun part of the show. After Gabe or whoever man is gives me their pick of the day, they also have to guess what the machine's going to say. And then I read you. And by the way, the machine is AI. In this case, it's Grok. And I will read you their reasoning, their pick and their reasoning. And I do it with a little fun in the background. But what do you think the machine's going to say?
I think the machine's going to take the Hawks plus 5.5 because they won by like 12 yesterday.
Here is the machine. What I like, says Grok. I lean towards the Magic covering the 5.5-point spread at home. Their defense should disrupt Atlanta's rhythm, and Banchera/Wagner can exploit the Hawks' depleted front court. However, the Hawks' ability to score and burst makes the game total around 220 to 225 intriguing. I'm leaning under on that as well due to Orlando's defensive strength and past trends. If you're eyeing a prop, Banchero over 29.5 points feels solid given his form against Atlanta. So there you have it, boys and girls. Man and the machine are either both going to win or they're both going to lose. I know which way I'd probably pick because they both suck, but I'm not going to make a pick. I have no opinion on this whatsoever. The pick for man and the machine is Magic minus 5.5 over the Hawks in Tuesday's playing game, and I can't wait to go over it again on Tuesday.
Did you just say I suck?
No. I said man and machine sucks. I didn't say Gabe sucks. I'm the one who made the worst pick in the history of this short history of this segment. I was
going to say we've got such a
the Pelicans history here. I picked the Pelicans plus 14.5, and they lost by 49. So no.
I can't believe it. You know what's crazy? The Pelicans loss yesterday might be even more embarrassing.
You might be right.
They lost to an Oklahoma City team who was playing nobody.
Right as we speak right now, I don't know when our next show is going to be. It might be Wednesday. It might be Thursday. It might be Friday. So I'll have to get back to you. But whatever the next man versus machine is, I can't wait, and I will talk to you then.
Sounds good.
All right. Before we wrap up this show today with my last word is on Kyren Lacy, which is very disheartening subject. I got a couple more Saints comments before we give the last word and say goodbye for the day. Let's see. First off, UBN says that's why Massive Sunday is his favorite Sunday of the year. It is a pretty good Sunday. Although I'm a fan, not always, but depending on where the British Open is. No, it's the Open. You're not supposed to call it the British Open. Mike Meir, is it Meir or Meyer? Get Milroy and use him as a Taysom Hill. Trade Carr for 2 Waterboro and a cheerleader. Waterboy? You mean Waterboy? Waterboy here. Earl's picks. I can imagine this entire shoulder thing is wrong. And the Saints and Carr are just laughing right now. Why else would both sides be so quiet about it? And still, I'm telling you, if it comes out later that all this is a bunch of BS, you know where you heard it first. Who that daddy says trade Carr for $5 and a fish sandwich. Man, you hate you some Carr. Earl. Note to self, don't put money on man or the machine. I mean, I was always taught to ride a streak, okay? Which means bet against streaks too. If you got a losing streak, that means you bet the opposite way, right? I'm just saying what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Gabe says that's good strategy so far. All right. Again, I will tell you that I don't know when my next show is going to be. My wife is scheduled for surgery that I have to be, obviously, not have to be, will be there for. As I speak to you right now, I don't know when that surgery, if it's going to be in the morning or in the afternoon. There's a possibility that I may come on Wednesday and change the time of the show to make it earlier if her surgery is later and we have a short show. By the way, breaking news per Shams on ESPN, Joe Dumars, the front runner, become the lead exec of basketball operations for the Pelicans. That would be absolutely phenomenal if that happens. Joe Dumars, who, by the way, is from Louisiana, I believe, from northern Louisiana. Thank you, Jay, with prayer. So, again, I don't know when the next show is going to be. If we don't have a show Wednesday, I will try to have a show on Thursday because I know with so much going, I can't do one tomorrow. But I do have a lot of work to do in the background as well. So there you go. So I just don't know when the next show is going to be. I'll have to let you know. All right. If you subscribe to the Dattitude YouTube page and click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live, you will know when we go on the air. So just do it right now if you got a second. Anyway, again, me this afternoon on 106.7 The Ticket, and I will be taking phone calls. You know what we'll be talking about. We'll be going into all this all over again. All right, my last word of the day. In case you are new to the show, you haven't watched for a while, this is how I've been ending the show. It's our newest segment. It's called The Last Word. And sometimes it's, sometimes it's a little whimsical, try to be a little funny. Sometimes it's a point that I have to make that I felt like I didn't have a chance to make or didn't want to spend during an earlier part of the show. In times like this, it's just going to be sad. Because that's what the death of Kyren Lacy is. It's just sad. There's no other way to put it. Mental illness is real. Okay. And to me, if one commits suicide, whatever the reason may be, there was something there way before he ever got to that point. If you haven't heard how the events have reportedly gone Saturday night, Kyren Lacy, who was already in a lot of legal trouble and saw his draft stock drop, which today doesn't matter at all, then you know that Kyren Lacy was probably going through a really rough time in his life. He made a silly, dumb decision back in December to drive his car at a allegedly super high rate of speed, which ended up resulting in the death of a 78-year-old man. And he was facing a lot of trouble going forward. Doesn't mean that he would have been convicted. He might have been not guilty. His lawyers say he would have been not guilty, but regardless of all that, he was facing lots of legal fees, and at the bare minimum was going to be in a major debt before his NFL career even got started. That's assuming that someone was actually going to give him a chance, and by all accounts, someone would have. Regardless of all that, none of that matters. A young man is dead today because of who knows what was going on behind the scenes. You know, as someone who has had, and I've told y'all this before, we've talked about mental illness on this show before. As someone who has had mental illness in his family in the past, played major roles in his family in the past, it is not only a real thing, it is someone that people, quote unquote, without mental, I think to some degree, almost everyone has some sort of mental illness. But you really should take all that into account before you go and judge someone. I've seen some dumb posts on social media and whatever else. It's the reason why I didn't want to take any comments on the subject today. I just didn't think it was necessary. My heart goes out for Kyren Lacy and his family and anyone that knew him or loved him. And you heard yesterday, if you watched, I don't know if it was on the other networks, but I happened to watch Fox 8 last night and heard his coach at Thibodeau talking about the love, and paints a completely different picture of what one might expect. There was no doubt that Kyren Lacy was troubled at least the last year of his life, not before this incident with the car and allegedly running someone off the road. He had problems before that, which probably led to why he was driving his car the way he was driving his car that night. We don't know why he got into a disagreement with a family member on Saturday night, allegedly. Shot a gun in the ground, took off speeding, got stopped, pulled over, and then decided, you know what? I'm just going to do this my own way and take off and end it. It's a sickness. Mental illness is just as much as a sickness as cancer is. In fact, a lot of times it's worse. And we should respect what that young man had to go through for the last at least few months of his life. My prayers go out, and prayers of this show go out to Kyren Lacy and his family. And it doesn't matter what he did on the football field, not even a little bit. But by all accounts, by people that I know, I never met him, but by the accounts of the people I know, he was a great individual. And that's the way that I'm going to remember him. And that's the way I hope you will too. That's how we're going to end the show. Again, we'll let you know when we're going to be on next. It will either be Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. We will most likely have a guest. And we will almost certainly be talking about a lot of the things that we talked about today. Try to find a way to squeeze the Pelicans in there. I'm sorry I didn't get to more of it. David Griffin, in case you didn't hear it, you live under a rock. Someone asked me if I live under a rock. If you're living under a rock, David Griffin was fired this morning. He certainly was. And so the Pelicans, were they really hired Joe Dumars? That'd be a fantastic hire. Talk about that on our next show. We're going to talk more about Derek Carr. Hopefully we know something. Maybe he'll say something on his new podcast. Is it going to dump every Tuesday? If it does, I'll be watching out for it. You can go find his podcast on YouTube. You can find out if he says something. It would make sense, wouldn't it? I don't know. Talk about that. We'll talk about a lot of things. That's coming up next on Dattitude, but it will wrap it up for us on Monday. I want to thank today's guest, Gabe Henderson, and you. You were our guest on a crazy. We knew it would be crazy, but we had more. I think we broke. What do you think, Gabe? We had more comments today than we've ever had, I think. I think we had more today than any other day. We will see you next time. A reminder to subscribe if you haven't done so already to our Dattitude YouTube page. Click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and many more. You can also find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. You can find me on bet.NOLA.com. You can find the Saints crew on NOLA.com/sports/Saints. They also have their own YouTube page, The Insider Show. I can imagine that ought to be a good one as well. You don't want to watch that. Again, catch me this afternoon on the radio, 106.7, The Ticket from 4 to 6. And maybe somebody, somewhere, if you know something about Derek Carr that's actually true, pass it on. We'd love to talk about it. Otherwise, we will see you on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.